What's up, everybody? TI Trading Wiz here. Wanted to make this video because I wanted to show people um, looking at levels. So over here, I have the overnight levels marked. I have Asia high, Asia low, and then I also have London low and London high. So we're definitely trading with inside the Asian range for the most part in New York session right now, which is kind of interesting. That doesn't often happen. But what trade would I be looking for here? And so I know that I made a whole video about this, but I wanted to give people like a real life example. I just finished trading this on my PA accounts on Apex, and so I made 485 bucks per account. And typically, and I also traded another account as well. But there are really two great trades here, right? The first trade was coming back into below London's high, right? So we had this little breakout right around 10, right? And then once we started to close below London, right? You could have taken a nice like little trade, something like this, right? Something like that. And you could have targeted, let's just say if you were doing London, you could have targeted half of that range. So that would have been 70 points, 70, no, that would be 60 points. I mean, that's a really nice move. It's a big move. Couple things I'd be aware of is that we do have a pivot point down here. And I would also be aware that I think the pivot point is here actually, where we bounced off of earlier during London. The other thing I'd be aware of is going to be this level and this level right here. So as long as your take profit was kind of before that, you're good. The other good entry, say if you missed this and you came a little bit late, like I did on one of my accounts. So one of my accounts, I was able to capitalize on that move. The other account, I wasn't able to log in time. So I waited till we had a pullback to like the 8 moving average right about in this range. And I was looking for it to move all the way to the lower, this lower target right here. So this was going to be Asia low. I'm pretty sure this was Asia low. Yeah, so this was Asia low. I was looking for it to kind of just come down, touch Asia low. I don't know where we go from there. I don't know if we continue going down or might bounce off Asia low. But that was a relatively decent trade. And then as we start moving down, we can kind of lower our risk too. Now the nice thing about this kind of type of setup that you don't have to have a lot of risk for a trade like this, right? I mean, this is we're only looking for 48 points. And you could have risked maybe only 5, but probably giving you 10 points here would have helped. I mean, honestly, even if you would have entered, say, in the middle of this range here, right, that's still a decent trade, right? Making 33, risking 20, as long as you're positive on your risk to reward on your entry, I think you're good, especially if you can DCA one time, potentially getting an ad up here near that 8 moving average and keeping a tight stop would also be relatively okay. I know trying to get the best entries is hard sometimes. So this is just kind of a setup that I actually took. The other thing, you could have tried a market open once we kind of got up into this range here. You could have gone for something like that, right? And maybe keep it really, really tight. I don't like that trade because your risk is on the 5-minute chart at least, right? Your risk is the 8 moving average, really, right? So in this example, like you're risking 26 points to make 22. Just the risk reward's not there. Like it's already made the move. This is why when you're trading ranges, I don't typically like to trade ranges during market open. This also kind of goes is this is Asia low. You can kind of see that we're forming shelves on it, right? But you can see how like in before we don't like the 8 moving average doesn't get respected right in this zone right here. And neither does Asia low. So that kind of makes it a little bit difficult to trade it. Now, what's interesting is it still line this low here, these lows here, right? Still line up with this low, right? And this low is kind of that low that formed in between Asia and London, but I don't typically like to try to trade that. But, you know, here it's like we're forming wicks here. This is a potential low area. If you got a good entry on this, it could play out, but I think it's too early to know if this is going to play out in your favor or not. And yeah, so I think if you did take this, say right on this level, I feel like you could theoretically, if you're trying to be really risky and take this pre-market, you know, you could do something like that, have about 11 points stop on that trade. And I mean, theoretically, you could go for 100 points here, but I'd like to again go for like half of the range. So this would be half of Asia's range. Asia's range would be actually up here. This would be 131. So roughly about 70 points. You know, you would got that on the opening candle. Again, this is not what I do. I don't ever trade this, but I do know people that are a lot more risky or just don't have a lot of time in the morning and they're more aggressive with their trade entries. But this is one of the reasons why levels are kind of important and highs and lows are important, is because you can end up with very good risk to reward setups like this, right? Where you're looking at the lows of these candles, putting your stop right below and looking to take a half of a previous session's range as a target. So you can end up with very high risk to reward plays here, looking on the 5-minute. So that's kind of why I think range trading is decent. And I think it's a very, very valid entry. Now, you know, I don't typically just trade ranges, right? I will use this in combination with all my charts that you see on my screen, but it's like on the 15 minutes, it's like, okay, hey, no, I know what we have up here is a pivot, right? If we reject off that pivot and then I see confirmation that we close below the London low here, right? Now I'm super interested in a trade, right? Confirmation that we closed below the London low, right in this candle over here, right? And the other thing that I'm looking for on the 1-minute chart would be that we have officially closed below the 21 moving average, which is what we got here. So if you entered on this trade right here, right? I don't want to see it on the 1-minute chart now. I don't want to see it come up above the 9 or this deviation line right here. And so, you know, you would have a really tight stop, or could, if you entered on that candle, right? You could have a really tight stop, something like that. About it, I typically try to give it 10 points at least when I'm opening a trade, especially if I have a good entry. If I don't have a good entry, I might have to give it a little bit more. And then you can see kind of how this trade would have played out. Again, I would be targeting half that range. And so wherever that ends up landing, right? You know, probably, I think it was like in this zone right here. But yeah, I mean, this is the idea. Now, so there's all sorts of ways to trade and be profitable. Some people trade standard deviation to standard deviation. So standard deviation 1, once we close below it, right, they will try to trade standard deviation all the way down to standard deviation 1 on the bottom side, and they will use standard deviation 2 as their stop. So they'll take a trade like this. Now, I don't like this setup because, like, I mean, once we kind of came up above this range and we start to come back down, you probably would have taken that entry right there, right? I want to see a little bit more confirmation than that, right? So, you know, you're talking about potentially, I guess if you took it back there, your stop would only be about 33 points. But you kind of get the idea, like you're taking this trade off the deviation line, trying to trade it to the second deviation line. And you have a lot of risk, but you still have a 2-to-1 risk to reward when you do this, just because, the deviations are deviations. Now the one way that you wouldn't have 2-to-1 risk to reward is if the deviation came down and then came up and started chopping and consolidated, right? And then these deviations get smaller, and then your profit might not be as big. But I mean, for the most part, typically, because especially if you're just basing off of right when you take the trade, the deviation, you always have a 2-to-1 in that scenario, because the deviations are exactly like this length from this one to this one is the exact same from this one to this one, and the exact same from this one, and the exact same from this one. Standard deviation 1 and 2. Okay. Math. Yeah. So, I mean, these are kind of just different ways of, again, just looking for trades. I think a lot of times people are so focused on what indicators and forget about just like basic price action and basic levels and understanding, like, how do levels affect the market, right? Like, do levels get respected, right? Do we see levels have reactions? Do we not see levels have reactions, right? This also gets into, like, there are certain times of the day where, some levels have bigger reactions than other. Sorry, my vacuum cleaner just started going off. If you guys can hear that, I apologize. Let me shut my door really fast. All right. So, let's see. The other candle that likes to have a lot of big reactions is the 830 candle. So it's like, if I highlight the 830 candle, this is always recently has been like a known zone of especially off of open, right? A lot of times that if we could pull back into it, right, off open, this is like potentially where the opening 5-minute candle will go and then take off. So kind of becomes like this, I call it like a plateau or like a shelf or a springboard. But you can kind of see, once we touch into that zone right here, how we sprung right back up to the 8 moving average on the 5-minute. So it doesn't always happen, but it happens enough where I'm aware of it. It's always good to be aware of these types of things. So yeah, I mean, this is why I think Asia session lows, Asian sessions high, London sessions highs and lows, this is why they're important. But again, I don't just trade off of marking Asia session lows, Asia session highs, right? And if you want to mark Asia session lows and highs yourself, all you have to do is look for the indicator called trading sessions inside of TradingView. Trading sessions. It's this one right here. It's free. It's by TradingView. There you go. And once you get that, it will have these sessions already marked out for you, right? Some people like to count this part of Asia session too over here. I don't. I like that how it just sets up default, and then I just mark the highs and lows and look to see how they react. And sometimes, if I'm trading inside of, say, London, right? I'm looking for, where are we going? Where are we going? How are we reacting? Right. And so once we start London and we started to fall, right? One of the things that I'm potentially looking for would be, am I looking for a trade that we could take down into the Asia low? Now, honestly, I don't like the price action during London, especially last night. I don't think it was very good. I mean, this is very, very choppy. Just did not make clean, nice moves. Something I would probably stay away from. The one thing that I might be looking for would be something like this and a break of this, and then looking to take potentially half of the Asia range as a profit target. But this is where, you know, let's see, the Asia range was 32, 32. So I would be looking for 32, 132 would be like, let's just say 65 points, right? So that ends up being the problem, is that half of the Asia range would be right where we are, kind of. And so the question is, on this break, right, is that enough of a profit where I could be happy? The answer is no. The risk to reward's not there. So then I would have to be looking for, okay, like, what do I want to do here? Do I want to potentially try to, like how much money am I willing to try to make on this trade versus the risk? Again, if I take just the swing high here, right, I put my stop at the swing high here, and I want a 2x risk to reward, right? And this means I would have to put that out to like 50. And you can kind of see that eventually plays in my favor, right? But took all night, and it was very, very, very choppy, very, very, very risky. And honestly, if I would have done this, I probably would have just gone ahead and put it at the Asia low then. I mean, at that point, if I'm going to wait, so it's either two things are going to happen. I'm either going to cut this trade early during London, or I'm going to break even and just let the trade ride and go sleep. So people ask sometimes, do I trade London? I used to trade London a lot, actually. And I don't anymore. And I might start again. I mean, the main reason we don't trade London in America is the time zone. I mean, it would cause me, I would have to get up at 3 a.m. and stay awake, you know. And it's a lot. It's a big order, big thing to do. But I will say that I think my most profitable month ever, November of last year, was the month that I was trading London. So I wasn't trading London exclusively, but I reworked my sleep schedule where I was like going to bed like at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., like something crazy like that. And then I was waking up at 3 trading. And sometimes then I would go back to bed and then wake up at 9. But you know, I think you only can do that for so long. I have a friend that does it, and he's been doing it for like 15 years like that. He lives on the West Coast. I don't know how he does it. You know, I think he stays up all through Asia and the Open of London, or he stays up all through London, and then for the opening of New York, and then I think he goes to sleep. And yeah, so there are people that do that every single day. I tried to do it. Very, very hard. Unless I live somewhere else, I think. But anyways, that's it for this video. Make sure you guys like, subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.